Welcome to my conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. Good morning, Deborah.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon for
Or
us.
good
It's 3
afternoon.
o'clock.
Actually, it's good afternoon here also. I
Well,
always say good morning.
it's fine because it's great. I'm a native Californian, as you had said. Used to be a news reporter in Los Angeles, had a great time until decided to move back here to Greenville, South Carolina. So it's been very interesting being back here on the East Coast. And in fact, one of the reasons that I'm really adapting to it right now is that the feels like temperature is starting to crest 100 degrees, primarily because of the humidity. Now, a lot of people complain about humidity. I must say, I kind of like it. It's nice on my skin.
You are a little strange at times.
I know.
But have you heard of a place, Conway, South Carolina? Is it the Conway or Conroy, South Carolina?
Yeah, what about it?
Which one is it?
Can't remember, but it's one of those.
Oh, it's on Lake Wachitachi or something.
Uh-huh.
No,
Vichitachi.
I told you I'm in my Facebook. I'm a member of graduates of Lincoln High School in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And
Okay.
one of the ladies I know that graduated in 1961, her and her husband live there.
Oh, very
On
nice.
Lake Wachitachi.
Good. You know what? It's probably Lake Jocassee. And it's funny because the lakes that are here are all basically man-made. And what the state decided to do back about 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I guess it's been, is to capture all of the water that comes down off the Appalachians. And they dammed up, they had a series of all these lakes that are all man-made lakes. And that's where we get a lot of our water. And it's funny because I know that you folks are still going through a drought. I mean, when I left in 2015, there was a drought going on. But for us here in South Carolina, we get rain, I would say about every 2 to 3 days. We get a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch, which is great for the garden. And it's also great for our for our water bill, to be very honest with you. So, but of course, I'm so used to in California, remember, and maybe you're still doing it, is that when you would wash dishes by hand because you'd never use a dishwasher, but you would go ahead and reuse the water 2 and 3 and 4 times to wash off
No.
dishes.
Well, now that I don't live in my own place, I'm an apartment. The water is paid for.
There you go.
But
Perfect.
the electricity is crazy because now, now we're going into the summer, so now we're gonna have to use the air conditioning a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when
That's
the air
right.
conditioning comes on, the bill is like about 3 times the amount that it normally is.
Now, what do you pay, if you don't mind me? Do you know how much you pay per kilowatt hour?
No, I just know total. I know like for 2 month bill, I pay between 150 and $200 per
Okay.
bill.
So for us, we'll pay about 160, maybe 170 here. We're
Yeah,
about 12 and a half cents per kilowatt hour.
yeah. I never paid attention to the kilowatt, but the during the summertime, and the bill comes into the mid 500s for 2 months.
Holy smokes.
Right, but again, we're home a lot.
That's right. That's
Yeah, I
true.
work out of the house. My wife works out of the house.
That's
So,
true.
when it's 105 degrees outside, we have the air conditioning on.
Yeah, you better believe it. It was funny because when we moved, my husband and I moved from Santa Barbara 5.5 years ago. Uh, Air conditioning up there was absolutely completely unheard of. And so it's interesting when people ask me about how do you stand the heat back here? And I said, well, we're all in air conditioning. So we'll go back out. In fact, all the cats are even in for the air conditioning. We've got Max over here. Hello, Maxie. Max is here with me. As Gracie is over here as well, and she's enjoying the air conditioning. And all the other cats are down in the basement in the boys' den and Sylvester's den, keeping out of the heat.
It's fish down there also.
Practically, actually, he and Sylvester are just like that.
They're doing their man thing.
Their man thing in their man cave, absolutely. So, what's been? Oh, I know what I should ask you.
Ask him.
President Biden said that national security, the biggest threat to American national security, is climate change. Do you agree?
Climate change, I think, is the biggest threat to humanity. I don't think it has to do with our security. It's humanity in general. Because
Well,
I don't know if you've been listening to some of my other shows, but I have a show called The Many Shades of Green.
Yep.
Which now is only on audio, but I've had it on video before, but we
I
switched
miss that. I miss being able to see everyone's face.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it back, but the people that we have it on Hudson Valley River or Hudson River Valley Radio can put podcasts on all these podcasts, which I can't on
okay.
Doing the Zoomcast. But I like Zoomcast. This is what I'm betting on, for the future.
Absolutely.
Because I like looking at you. I don't like just talking into, especially if it's remote. I don't like just talking into a microphone at an empty studio.
I have to agree, but I think that
at least now I relate to you.
Yeah, well, but your host on that particular program, very, very interesting person, as is many of your other guests that are on there. Your other not podcasts, because they're Zoom calls.
I learned so much. As a matter of fact, there's some shows which I had two shows this week called Sid and Malcolm, which is a guy from Rock and Wrap It Up, which he gives food to the shelters to feed to the food insecure people, or
wow.
And he's done that since for 30 years already, and he figured out he fed over 1 billion people in this country. It's wild, but he has such interesting people that help him out. In fact, I might do a show with one, the Reverend Fletcher Harper, who is such these are all giving people, and Fletcher has a thing called the Green Faith. And he and other ministers are talking to people about how to save the planet, which I want to do. I think I don't know if I mentioned it on this show, but I want to do a show. I'm not really much into religion, to God, to for us to go to the other world. We have to be good so we can go to heaven or wherever we go. I want people to be good to be here.
You should be good to be good.
To be good, but to be good for people here.
Absolutely.
While we're alive. And this is what Reverend Harper is doing, to be good to people here. And that's a show I want to get with him and other ministers to talk about how we make the earth better, not how we can get to heaven.
Well, I do say that the one thing that did concern me about President Biden is getting back to doing good while you're here. It did concern me that the number one national security issue and danger is climate change. And the problem is going to be as we go ahead, and I guess the Keystone Pipeline is now gone, and yet Russia has been given the okay to complete their pipeline. It's going to go directly into Germany. Problem is, if we lose our energy independence, it makes us more beholden to entities that are not very friendly towards us. So I was concerned to hear that China was not considered to be a national security issue, nor Russia, nor Iran. And at this point right now, I understand that President Biden went ahead and lifted some of the sanctions on Iran. And I'm not quite sure why, because Russia just gave them a brand new satellite dish that allows Iran now to look and spy on the Middle East, including American installations. So I'm not really quite sure where he's going with this. Once again, I'm an independent. I'm an independent on things. I did vote for Obama. I voted for Bill Clinton. I vote for the individual that I think that can do the best for America, for Americans, and not necessarily by the party. And I've been, soundly criticized by a lot of my Republican buddies and some of my Democratic buddies as well. But I think what you have to do is you have to look at the attributes of the individual and what the individual is doing. And it does concern me. Even for example, go ahead.
I'm in agreement with you with a lot of things, because even I voted for Biden, and I'm a bit more basically a Democrat. I don't think I've ever voted for a Republican. I have actually. I don't know whether John Lindsay, the mayor of New York, was a Republican. I think he was a Republican, but I think second term he ran as an independent.
Yeah, I'm keying off the fact he was, but I'm not a New Yorker, so you are.
And I was a big John Lindsay fan. But again, I try to vote for the individual, not necessarily for the party. And I don't agree with everything that Biden is doing. But philosophically, our biggest threat is to the U.S. Now, I don't know if you would call it security. I think the word is wrong. But the biggest threat to the country, if you look to see how much the forest fires in California, now they have this out of control forest fire in Arizona.
Yeah.
And we haven't hit the fire season yet here. And
I happen to be all the time when I was in the Los Angeles market, the major market. I, for some reason, was always the fire reporter, and I have to tell you, that is a scary assignment. And you can poo-poo the whole situation with fires, but they're an animal.
No, you can't poo-poo it anymore. I think there was over 4 million acres was destroyed last year.
Yeah.
And aside from that, the frequency of hurricanes going through your parts of the world, the tornadoes, and and it's getting worse. It's not getting better.
Well, my other concern, of course, at this point right now, with losing energy independence, which apparently we're starting to do, and it does now make us beholden to the cartels, the overseas cartels. I am very concerned about the fact that why in the world, if we think climate change is so critical, why are we not making sure that China, we hold the feet of the Chinese to the fire, and making sure that they actually adhere to some of the climate change rules and regulations? Why do we only have to?
Well, I think we're trying to with the Paris Accord. This was everybody getting together and work. It's like we do. If you don't talk to somebody, you don't know what's happening. You can't have any agreements if you're not talking.
Well, our difficulty
and when we pulled out of Paris,
our difficulty is that the Chinese Communist Party has no reason to talk with us. They've already have a dictate that they will be the supreme country by 2035. And that, I think, is almost as close to a declaration of war as that you can have. They want to be the dominant. They also want to replace the dollar, all of these various things. I'm very, very pro-American. I get very concerned when we're starting to deride America. We're starting to deride the fact that because I'm white, that I am an oppressor. Because you're male, you're an oppressor. I think that's outrageous. I don't understand.
Well, you see, according to them, if I'm Jewish, forget about it, because I'm not even part of the white race.
Well, I know that good old Omar, whatever the heck her last name.
Omar is a fringe lady. I mean, you take everything that the fringe says, because everything she says, they blow up. She is not representative of necessarily the Democratic Party. She's a left winger.
Who is they blow it up? Who is they blow it up?
The press, the
press
sensationalism.
The press is
sensational. It's a sensationalism.
Well, the press is on the side of the Democrats at this point right now.
Well, not necessarily on the Democrats. They're on the side of right, because the Republicans are going crazy.
Why do you think the Republicans are going crazy?
Well, look what's happening in the Republican-controlled state governments, where they're trying to change that whole thing of the election laws, of making it where the state legislators can overturn whatever however the state voted.
No.
That's number one.
They're not doing that, Malcolm. All they're asking to have is to make sure that, number one, that you can identify yourself, which is something you have to do to pick up even airline tickets or concert tickets, that you can identify yourself properly. And number two, they're trying to make sure that the mail-in voter situation, they have properly identified that absentee ballots are not mailed out willy-nilly as they were.
Well, that's only in the registration of people registering.
No.
They're also talking about where the states, the state government can overrule, can go to the election and retally the votes, or negate what the people had said.
What states?
That I'm not sure. I'm not, I have different notes. One day we'll talk, if you want to go, we'll go over, I can go over, state by state, what's happening.
No problem.
What do you
But let
think,
me,
what do you think of
no,
what's
no, no.
happening with the abortion laws?
Listen, I think that at this, being a woman and at a very critical time in my life, I thought that I was going to need an abortion. And I certainly wanted to be able to, and at that time it was not legal and I was scared to death. And fortunately, I didn't need an abortion. But I think that women should be able to have that abortion. And I don't, however, believe that if in fact you have a beating heartbeat in your belly, that's a human being, unfortunately. But I'm sorry, when you're pregnant. Not a secret.
Not necessarily after 6 weeks.
Listen,
After 6 weeks, you missed one cycle.
Yeah, well, you know what you end up doing? You end up then taking a pregnancy test, and that pregnancy test then shows that you're pregnant.
Right, but after the end of 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and then you can't do anything about it?
No, bottom line is that as soon as you miss a period, you are taking a pregnancy test.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
but
double and
okay,
tripling.
I have a question for you, which I don't know you. How many times have you, during your earlier days, how many times have you missed a period?
Several times.
Naturally.
And at the time that I did,
Or that you were late. Every time you were late,
no.
you took a pregnancy test?
Absolutely. Are you joking?
Okay,
Of course I did. I don't want to brag.
Oh, how about the recount of the vote? How about the recount of the vote in Arizona?
Wait a minute. We went from pregnancy to the recount.
Yeah. Oh, well, I skip around because I'm not prepared for anything then. I'm prepared for a lighter conversation.
Oh, no.
Soon we're going to get into immigration.
Well, you realize that Texas is now going to go ahead and start rebuilding the wall because VP Harris can't even handle the question about going down to the border. How embarrassing was that?
No matter
and then the Univision reporter. Oh my God!
No matter which way she goes, she's wrong. She pisses somebody off. If she
for heaven's sake!
Wait. If she says, "Don't come here," because the border is not open.
I'm sorry, the border is wide open.
Right, but she says, "Don't come here. You're not getting in." Now,
well, it was about 2 months later because President Biden said, "Come on down. I'm going to be with you."
But now the opponents say, "How mean can she be? There's so many people suffering. They're coming on down. What are they going to do?" No matter which way, no matter what she says, she's wrong.
My question is this, and this is as one American to another American. How does letting in last month alone 182,000 individuals through the border, and that was just the ones that were quote unquote caught because they will be released. How does that help America? How is this to help America? I don't understand.
I have a broader question.
Yeah.
How does that help humanity to let people suffer on the border and die there?
Why would you convince people? Why would you convince people to somehow that are poor somehow come up with $5,000 to $10,000 per person to come to America? You are then controlled by the cartels. The cartels get the money. And I cannot believe the fact that the American government at this point right now is in collusion with criminal cartels. These cartels are making $40 million per week.
Yeah, but you just commented upon Vice President saying, "Don't come."
Well, she said it. Don't come.
No. She said it out loud, and she said it.
Well, it's a little bit beyond the fact because
it's not beyond the fact. But anyway, the fact is,
she's not being serious. Biden said, "Come on up."
Well, why is she not serious? No, Biden. I've heard Biden's speeches saying, "Don't come. Our border is not open."
Oh, he said, "Come on."
Oh, okay. No matter what. Okay, so maybe he said we're helping Iran. He really doesn't mean it. He's being controlled by. He's actually not running the government. It's running by the vice president.
it could be that the fact that Dr. Jill is running the government and his staff is running the government. There was the collapse of meetings between the Republican representative, what was her name? Capito, I believe it was. And she said that she and the president had come up with an infrastructure deal. Unfortunately, 24 hours later, no deal. And Capito, the representative, the senator, said somehow or another, the staff wasn't very happy with the deal that we had come up with. So, and I did think it was interesting that during the speech when, because President Biden and Dr. Biden are overseas in the UK right now, that I did find it interesting that as Dr. Biden was making a speech, she turned to her husband and said, "Joe, you have to pay attention." I mean, that's, I just,
I haven't
would you
seen
do that? Would you do that to your wife if you were, I can't believe it. It was just
Well,
bizarre.
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment about
Oh.
it. But I can see this new movie coming out
What's that?
next year where Biden comes out, I actually think it was, but Biden comes out, in the morning, says something, then they put him back in his room. Then they take him out in the afternoon. He say something else. Then they put him back in his room, and somebody else is running the government. He's only the figurehead, which I haven't seen any.
How would you feel about that?
I would feel it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. I see the right wing, the extreme right, the extreme news. If you see Newsmax, which is totally ridiculous. I mean, it makes Fox News look like they're liberals.
Well, it's not a major player, so.
But
Fox News is the number 1 news at this point right now. They are beating the pants off CNN, MSNBC. You realize that CNN, when you look at the Nielsen ratings, and I know that as a TV reporter, you look at those ratings. Prime time, they're not even getting 1 million viewers, not even one.
I listen to where over here is National Public Radio.
I used to work for them, and I loved it when they were there.
KPCC, Pasadena Community College, which is part of NPR.
Is KUSC still doing National Public Radio?
KUSC is, as far as I remember, is concerts.
Right, it was classical.
It's the only classical.
Oh, so they
still classical.
NPR?
Yeah, because I used to work for KFAC, which was the commercial classical station.
I remember that. We were rivals because I worked as a news reporter. I was the news director at KUSC.
I used to sell against it, except KUSC was non-commercial.
Yep, I know. We tried very hard to become commercial, but we couldn't. But National Public Radio at that time was very fair. That's where I cut my teeth on a lot of news business. And I had a great editor. And that editor would go through all of my my copy and say, Deb, you can't say these words. They're just too emotionally charged. But that's the way I feel. And she said, I don't care how you feel.
Right. You're a reporter. You're not supposed to put your feelings in there. You're supposed to put the facts in there. Another thing I listen to is British broadcast, BBC.
Oh, it's the BBC.
Yeah, because actually Pasadena Community College plays an hour or two excerpts from them in the evening. But you also find out things that are happening in the world, which you really are, a national newscast, maybe you have 5-10 minutes of it, if that. But you find out what's happening in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, now my question, what do you think about El Salvador legitimizing the bitcoins? That that's bitcoins going to be they're going to have the dollars and the bitcoins as exchange rates. I don't understand that.
I want to be very progressive about things. Okay, that sounds crazy, but I want to be very open-minded to it. But I do hearken back to a company that my late husband and I ran. And we were approached by a number of investors who wanted us, because we did private investigations, financial private investigations, forensic audits, what have you. We were approached by some investors who had been approached by, does this name sound familiar? Bernie Madoff. And
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah. And it was very interesting. You look at some of the basics of things. And what does concern me about Bitcoin, it reminds me very much of the investigation we did on Bernie Madoff. I understand that they're saying that it's almost gold backed in a sense, that they're mining and it's a limited supply of Bitcoin and what have you. But I do feel as though there could be some nefarious goings on. I think it's a marvelous way to be able to launder money and without any of the trackability. So perhaps that's fine for El Salvador. They don't want to have money tracked. But for the rest of us, I think it's we should be careful, be very, very careful. I think it's important to keep the dollar as strong as it needs to be, and it has been weakened because of the pandemic. And I know the Chinese are looking very much to be able to have their currency be in the #1 slot. I think the dollar, I would prefer to have America have the currency in the #1 slot, because I do think that we're a little less tainted, to say the least.
Well, it's strange in one sense. Like you talked before, you say China is going to become the dominant country, and that's wrong for them to be wanting to be dominant country. But in the other sense, you want America to be the dominant country. What's
Well,
right about America being the dominant country?
I trust the democracy of America more than I trust the totalitarianism of the Chinese. I found it very interesting. There was a school board meeting in which a survivor of the Mao's Red Guard spoke before the board, and she said, "I survived Mao, and I'm concerned about critical race theory because the Maoists would divide us along the economic class lines, and critical race theory is dividing us along the skin lines." And she says that is not American. That is basically fascism. That is Maoism, and we're on a very, very bad track. So I would prefer to have America. I think that we have done a good job. We are not perfect by any means, but we certainly do strive to recognize the individuals. And I do think that when we find that we have made some errors, that we try and correct those errors. That's why I do very, very firmly believe that we need to have both Republicans and Democrats on both sides, not just Democrats ramming through so-called infrastructure bills that Joe Biden wants to have. I think you need to have the Republicans there as well. That's very, very important.
See, one thing I disagree with you. I mean, a lot of things I disagree with you. But when Republicans were in control, they passed legislation that was totally Republican, that they didn't get any Democratic votes.
And that was wrong. That's wrong.
And now, when the Democrats are, have the majority, they're saying, "Oh no, you can't do that. It has to be bipartisan."
Well,
excuse me, that is bull.
It needs to be bipartisan, and I do have to say that Mitch McConnell did have a chance to be able to get rid of the filibuster. He refused to, and I'm glad that he refused to, as is now, thank heavens, Democrat Senator Joe Manchin is now refusing, as is Representative Senator Sinema, refusing to get rid of the filibuster. We got to have.
What's so important about the filibuster?
It's very important because you cannot have one party. You cannot have one party domination. Otherwise, that's called a dictatorship. And but
if they do the legislation that's wrong, that's bad for the country, the next election they're going to be thrown out.
Well,
so it changes. I mean,
there was a reason.
Like Manchin says, we can't have. I want bipartisan, but as far as I know, the Democrats or the president has been calling all these Republicans to his office and talking to them. And there was a certain agreement on the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was done by the president and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and they agree upon it. And then McConnell said, "No, we're not going to bring it up to the floor." Where he doesn't.
There's a new infrastructure proposal. It's $1 trillion, and it is strictly old-fashioned highways, bridges, airports. It isn't childcare. It isn't critical race theory. It's none of the other stuff. It's the good old-fashioned stuff, which is infrastructure, which is what we certainly all need to be able to have.
I want the good old structure of American, where women can't vote. And we're in order to vote, you have to have a educational background, and you have to have a certain amount of money. You know, you talk about things change. You say, I want the old-fashioned thing, the old-fashioned definitions. It's no longer old-fashioned. You know, it's old-fashioned doesn't include the internet. The internet is part of the structure of this country. Without the internet, you know, people are lost with information and what it can do. But of course, you know, the internet is part of the is not part of the infrastructure. Of course it is.
I agree, and I have to tell you, for people our age, that the internet is marvelous. I order everything now online. I order it through Amazon, through Walmart, through Harris Teeter Grocery.
Right. And
should be delivered.
And it should be available to everyone in all parts of the country.
I agree.
And that's what they're trying to do.
Well, at this point right now, Microsoft has a major plan, and it's being done not through the government, but through private enterprise, because they can see there's a tremendous amount of money to be made. And they're looking at the middle America and making sure that the rural areas do in fact have internet service. But it's a private enterprise. It's not a government enterprise. I've not seen a lot of real, I mean, you know, the Tennessee Valley Authority, okay, that was fine. But at this point right now, I mean, we have a vibrant economy. Let the people go back to work. I mean, I feel
actually, I think someone's interfering. You've lost your the microphone went out.
Uh-oh.
So I don't. But anyway, also that's a clue that our 30 minutes is up. You heard the
the bell.
But anyway, yeah. Just you know, the last thing, I agree that probably private industry can handle a lot of the functions that government does better than government. But the problem is we get the greed factor in there.
Well, all I want the government to do, I want them to catch the bad guys. I want them to make sure that the corporations are not running over the top of everybody. And then just let the rest of us go. Let the rest of us figure out how to make this thing kick. And we will.
But there's a word that is a dirty word to Republicans, especially our former president: regulations. Without regulations, the private industry runs amok. Under that note, let me be, since it's my show. No, it's our show. We'll speak next week.
We'll speak next week. And my love to Anna and your entire family. And
say hello to Fish and your furry friends. And even your little chickens, but I don't have as much love for your little chickens as I do for your furry friends.
Very good, but you should. They're adorable. All righty. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.